There's no need to fret. There's no need to cry. It's all over now. Terence Bud Crawford is officially no longer a champion at 147 pounds. The welterweight division. A glamour division. In this video, I'm going to break everything down for you. So a couple days ago, and I did do a report on this, which is why it is important, if you are a fan of boxing, to hit the subscribe button so you stay up to date for all your boxing news. But I wanted to talk about more things regarding Terence Crawford. A couple days ago, it was confirmed from the WBA that Terence Crawford has sent, or at least his team, right? They have sent a letter to the WBC, and they had to, basically, I told you this before the fight with Madrimov. This is how it went down. Terence Crawford was the super champion, which immediately granted some options in the new weight class. He said he's trying to fight Fundora. He also was undisputed, and they were able to do a deal with the WBA. So he got the Israel Madrimov fight. Contingent on Terence Crawford had a period of time, if he were to win the Madrimov fight, which he did do, that he would have to notify the WBA as far as what he was planning on doing next, because they don't want to hold the belt hostage, meaning, are you staying at 54? Do you want to fight at 147? Can you go back down? Can you make that? Terence Crawford has told the WBA that it's over, and you guys see it. This is the article from the WBA's very own website. It says Crawford is keeping his WBA super welterweight belt. And it says Crawford decided to remain champion at 154 pounds, super welterweight division, and vacate his welterweight belt. Vacate, you see that right there. Vacate his welterweight belt. According to what he formally communicated to the organization, the American sent in a letter and informed of his decision to keep the 154-pound title. So that's pretty straightforward. Crawford, I told you guys, and you guys laughed because I got my prediction wrong. Crawford looked sucked up in the Errol Spence fight week. Make no mistake about it, that was a rough cut. And I told you guys that. But since I got the actual fight prediction wrong, I guess that overshadowed the rest of my commentary. And, you know, when you're great, such as myself, and you get it right most of the time, that's what people do. They whisper your successes, but broadcast your failures. I got my prediction wrong I did think Errol Spence would really beat Terence Crawford, right? It's no love lost. They're both good fighters. Somebody got to win. Somebody got to lose. I thought Errol had something for him. But to me, it looked like Errol Spence, something went on in camp. He looked like he was drained or, you know, stifled at the weight, whatever. He just didn't look like the Errol that I've ever seen. And I don't think many, even the people who were picking Crawford to beat Errol Spence, most people didn't pick a one-sided, like, beat down, Errol getting dropped by jabs, Errol getting dropped 3 times and stopped. I mean, I wasn't seeing a lot of predictions like that. Yeah, some people were probably saying, like, oh, Crawford can stop him. But people thought it was going to be a good fight, which it really wasn't, because it was one-sided. It was a good performance more so than a good fight. So after beating Errol Spence, Crawford had a decision what he was going to do next. He made that decision to move up to 54. He beat Madrimov, and then he communicated with the WBA that he is keeping the belt at 54. So at age 36, this month he turns 37. And I think he can't make 47 anymore. I think his body is rejecting it, and it's becoming harder and harder. And he also became undisputed for the second time, so you don't really have anything else to prove. So as a man who's about to, you know, he's pushing 40 and he's about to be 37, he's closer to 40 than he isn't. I think Terence Crawford, should he continue to fight, he wants to make it easier on himself in terms of the weight cut. Now, it leads me to the next portion of this video, which is Terence Crawford. He's done all these belts at the welterweight division. Done. He has no belts at 47. He has one belt at 154. So to me, in essence, it's like the reset button has been pushed, because in boxing, what I've noticed is at the end of the day, what you've done in the past in other divisions, that's cool for your legacy. It's good for, when they want to see if you're a Hall of Famer. But the guys in the new division and the rankings and stuff, it really doesn't matter. Like, for example, if Danny Garcia is at 54, 160, I think he's fighting Erislandy Lara at a catchweight. Does anyone care what he did at 140? Like, not saying career-wise when it's all said and done, but I'm saying, you think Erislandy Lara is entering the Danny Garcia fight and he's like, oh, man, and he's shaking his boots because Danny Garcia knocked out Amir Khan at 140 pounds? Of course not, because fighters have egos, no pun intended, and at the end of the day, they're like, you have to prove that to me in this weight class. What you did previously is cool, but you got to solidify yourself. Crawford is one fight deep in his 154-pound career, and he looked human versus a guy with only 11 fights in Madrimov. It was a high-speed match. Crawford showed some, I don't know, I guess the will to win is maybe the way to put it, a sense of urgency in the later rounds, because the fight was probably too close for comfort, and Madrimov stepped in as the champion. So Crawford looked like he really didn't want to lose, and he started, putting it together in the championship rounds, beat Madrimov. Madrimov, of course, is calling for a knockout, but let's not get it twisted. The fight was, especially from the perception of fans, it was closer than most people thought it would be. And I know Crawford's team is trying to kind of be like, oh, yeah, that's why we picked him. We knew. I doubt that. I think they truly thought that they could get the stoppage or beat Madrimov even more convincingly. But that's what happens. You get in there and somebody might be even better than you thought. But I truly think Crawford's team, they were looking for, he was coming off the Errol Spence performance where he dominated. So even though, despite being in a new weight class, it's still Terence Crawford, and he's a great fighter. And Madrimov, for the most part, is inexperienced as a pro, right? His biggest fight is what? Michel Soro, or his title fight that he just got in March, a couple months before he fought Crawford. So to be honest, I think that's why people were overestimating Crawford's ability there in a new division, and they were underestimating Madrimov. And this is exactly what I said before the fight. And it played out exactly how I said. I said it was going to be rugged. It was going to be some work, and it wasn't just going to be like a walkthrough. You guys, on the other hand, a lot of y'all were leaving me comments, oh, Ego, you're wrong, and Ego, you don't know. Crawford's going to knock him out easy. Didn't happen. So fast forward to the future. We'll see what's next for Crawford. He's done at welterweight, at least belt-wise. He doesn't seem to want to fight Jaron Boots Ennis. Turki Al-Sheikh, who works with Crawford, says they're going to offer him the Virgil Ortiz fight, but Turki also said in the X spaces that he don't believe Terence Crawford will take it, and Crawford seems kind of hell-bent on fighting Canelo Payday. You want payday? I know that, right? And we have to see what happens in the Berlanga fight, but I really, with the relationship that Canelo and Turki has, and Canelo previously saying what he said, I don't see the Crawford fight happening. I really don't. So will Crawford even continue to fight? I don't know. Eddie Hearn says he doesn't think so. He doesn't think that Crawford wants to fight unless it's a Canelo fight. And that's kind of what Turki said. So I guess the ball's in Terence Crawford's court. You guys let me know what you view of his career if he decides to hang it up at this point. I think it's a waste, though. I think you spend all that time on Top Rank. You re-sign with Top Rank, and now you're pushing 40. And I can't tell a guy when to retire or not to retire, but his skills haven't eroded. He's in shape. Yeah, the fights might get tougher, but I feel like it's a little bit underwhelming if he doesn't continue to fight, in my opinion. And the reason I'm saying that is because your whole career has been stifled with fights that people weren't chomping at the bit to see. And then now, as a free agent and working with Turki Al-Sheikh, you have some pretty good options, I would say. Pretty good options, definitely better than when you were a welterweight with Top Rank and even like 135 and really 140. A couple of the fights were cool, like Victor Postal, you know, things like that. But now this is where the game should get interesting and like open up, and Crawford can show, you know, listen, I'm the man. Beat Virgil Ortiz, beat a Jaron Boots Ennis, rematch Israel Madrimov, right? Not just the Canelo fight. There's Jermell Charlo, there's Tim Tszyu, there's Fundora. And I know some of those fights are probably harder to get across the line, but if Crawford has these opportunities, but then he's not realistic with the money and he's only looking for one major Canelo cash out fight, again, to me, I think that will be pretty disappointing. Like, you just want one fight. Like, you think you've done so much. I get the 2X undisputed, but let's be real. Usyk was 2X undisputed, and he had a harder path. It's just this man went from cruiserweight to heavyweight. That's a harder jump, because now in heavyweight, you've seen Wilder. He weighed 220, 230 maybe, and he fighting this dude is like 300 pounds. It's a harder jump because the heavyweight has no weight limit, you know. And this man is beating Joshua Dubois, Daniel Dubois, and Tyson Fury to solidify himself at heavyweight. He just beat Fury, a 6'9" gargantuan, to become second undisputed. You fought a Errol Spence that looked like something was wrong. To me, it ain't looked like nothing was wrong with Tyson Fury at all. The thing that was wrong with Tyson Fury is Usyk was punching him in the face. To me, before you even threw a punch at Errol Spence, it genuinely looked like he was going through something. Like, people were saying it. They were like, oh, he looks high. I don't care how many people get mad. Don't watch me. That's all you have to do. Don't watch my channel. I don't really care. Unsubscribe. It's not going to stop my opinion. I looked at the fight. To me, I think Errol has something going on. Whatever that was, it is what it is. You guys, oh, you're making excuses. Whatever. Like I said, I'm not going to not address the elephant in the room because the Bud Buddies get mad. To me, it looked like Errol Spence. Again, Tyson Fury, it didn't look like anything was wrong. He didn't look high when he was walking out. He was walking out. He looked chipper. He looked jovial. His eyes looked clear. He almost got knocked out, but that was what transpired in the fight. I mean, just be real. You've seen how many boxing fights, and of course, there's a lot of fights where somebody shows crazy separation. So that's not absurd. But for this particular fight, just something about it seemed odd. It's kind of like Canelo versus Kovalev. I watched Kovalev live fight multiple times, including Andre Ward, both fights. I was at both of them. And then when he fights Canelo, he looked like something's wrong with him. That looked like FAF. I've been saying that since that fight. I don't care what nobody said. Canelo versus Kovalev, and then Canelo hit him with like 2 shots and he knocked out senseless. But he was fighting all these light heavyweights and Ward and Jean Pascal. But little old Canelo move up and just destroy him. You know, that quick turnaround. I don't know what was up with him. Rehydration clause. But that fight looked just like the Errol Spence and Crawford fight to me. You guys can say whatever you want. It don't really matter. But all in all, we'll see what Crawford decides. But he's no longer the man at welterweight, which should usher in some new names. The Boots, the Barrios, the Stanionis. I don't know what Conor Benn is doing, but those are the names at 47 right now. And we'll see who, solidifies themselves Crawford did his thing at 47 towards the end, you know, especially with the Errol Spence fight. But the WBA was the last belt that he had at welterweight, and that's gone. Let me know what's next for Crawford. Do you want to see the Canelo fight? I've already told you my opinion. I don't, because I believe that weight classes exist for a reason. It's not a video game. And I don't like fights with that built-in, you know, oh, he dared to be great. You know, and finally, and there's a lot of people, they don't have the courage or the confidence, whatever their issue is. A lot of low quality content in boxing. I say it. I say what I feel. I say what I mean. I don't care if the whole world go against me. I'm gonna still come out on top. But the other thing is, you guys got to look at it. Some fans are treating boxing like it's a video game. Just this guy from this weight class, this guy from this weight class, and just because they have names fight each other. But hear me out. Another reason why I don't like fights like that, typically, like 9 times out of 10, maybe even 10 times out of 10, is because there's really no future there, right? It doesn't push the sport forward, right? No matter what happens, it really doesn't push the sport forward. Because let's say hypothetically, which I don't believe, but let's say Crawford beat Canelo Alvarez at 168, right? Then what? It's not like he's going to stay there and fight against David Morrell or try to fight David Benavidez or fight the top names there. I highly doubt. He would just cash out and probably retire. Like, I beat Canelo, look, you know, and then leave. So then what? Just get rid of the belts that Canelo has, or you just blemish Canelo, and then what? You know, or on the flip side, let's say Canelo wins. Then it's a built-in excuse. Oh, Terence was so small and he was 37 years old and Canelo was too big, too strong. So you just lined your bank account. We wasted our time, you know, watching it, and you have a built-in excuse of you tried and dared to be great. Not a fan of that. It doesn't matter. Like, what does the fight matter? Like, if you see it, if you don't see it. I care more about the pertinent fights that actually move the sport forward and it could be built from, you know, like if Crawford continues to fight, I think 54 looks like his ceiling. That looks like the sport. I mean, we've only seen one fight. People can get better, but based on that Madrimov fight, that looks like the cap. And I think Crawford shot himself in the foot taking on Madrimov because he didn't look God tier, in my opinion. He looked sharp, he looked good, but there's also moments where Madrimov was looking good. So for me, if you truly wanted the Canelo fight, the way you performed versus Madrimov, you shot yourself in the foot. You cheddar bobbed yourself, because if that's how that fight looked at 54, to the point where some people, I'm not saying me, but some people were even saying, oh man, I thought Madrimov won, give Madrimov a rematch. The fact that there's any perspectives out there that are pretty much saying that and they truly believe that, this is at 54. Who wants to see you move up, bypass 160 and go all the way to 68 for Canelo, right? And I also don't like what it represents for the David Benavidez's of the world, and even guys like Morrell or Mbili or anybody. It's like they're in Canelo's division. Diego Pacheco's in his division in the mandatory. Mbili's a mandatory. Benavidez was the mandatory. Morrell was the mandatory. And then none of them get the fights. Actual 68-pounders. Like Mbili just fought a very strong fighter in Sergey Derevyanchenko, right? Pacheco, he just knocked out Selecki, who had never been knocked out. Benavidez is tearing through stuff. We know what he's doing, right? Morrell got another win, even at 175. So the point is, why would Crawford be above boxing and get rewarded and cut in line in front of all these guys and get the Canelo fight? Like, not the mandatories that deserve it, not guys who are fighting in the weight class that deserve it, that have earned it, that are also wanting the same Canelo fight, but a guy who started out pretty much at lightweight, moved to 40, 47, and got one fight at 54, and then looked kind of mid-ish in the 54 fight, then he gets Canelo. We'll see what happens next, people. We unpack. We unpack. We unpack. We unpack. Coming to you live, Boxing Ego unpack. Yeah. We unpack. We unpack. We unpack.